Hey, how you doing today? Bob Brooks here for the Gilly Glue. Just gonna feel up some feeders. Gonna move the position of that one. Having just come through Canada Day a few days ago. We're post Canada Day here, but today is the 4th of July. Wanted to wish all of our American followers a very happy Independence Day and hope you have a great time, but play safe. We're going to talk about some fledglings as well. It's a beautiful time of year to be talking about fledglings, so stay with me. Hey, there we go. Well, we got the feeder moved and just filling up some other feeders. I got this other classic here. I've got a classic there and a Squirrel Buster Plus up there. This is a Squirrel Buster Standard here. Pretty much running these solely this time of year. We have a lot of common grackles and some red-winged blackbirds sometimes and that kind of thing. So I just purely run the Squirrel Buster product at this time of year. We do have a feeder, big hopper feeder out in the front that works okay and stuff too, but I don't fill it regularly. I kind of keep the food sparse for those guys. But you know, the springtime is great. Spring migration is a wonderful time of year. We get to see a lot of variety of birds and a lot of activity that we don't see throughout the winter, and it kind of initiates the summer and this beautiful weather we got here. It's a beautiful warm day again today. But after the migration and then the birds get on the nest, they become a little bit absent for a little while, and then all of a sudden you start seeing lots of activity and lots of things happening. So we have fledglings here now from everything from green herons, blue herons out in the river, both nuthatches, the red-breasted, white-breasted nuthatch. We have those fledglings. We have purple finches and their fledglings, chickadees, wrens, rose-breasted grosbeaks, of course blue jays and robins and all those guys as well. And how do you identify fledglings, and what do you do if you find one on the ground? So we're going to go 2 stages here. We're going to talk about the fact that we got to think about the nest as being a very vulnerable spot. We have all seen, and I get comments in the store quite frequently about people that say, you know, that they witnessed a nest attack, as we like to call it, where it would be a crow or a blue jay or whatever attacking a smaller bird's nest and either getting the eggs and or the young. So the nest is a very vulnerable spot. So it genetically, and the parent as well, will hoist the small birds out of the nest, perhaps what we would consider to be too soon. We find them on the ground, we find them exposed, we realize that their feathers haven't developed enough. You know, in some instances you can't even really tell what type of bird it is because they're so young and underdeveloped. But that is, I mean, there's extenuating circumstances for that for sure, whether they be in danger or they appear injured, all those types of things, you got to consider that. But at the same time, if not, just leave the bird alone, and the parent are nearby, they're feeding it, they're looking after it, they will tend to it and bring it along, because that's their time of development. You got to think about that too, in the sense that, oh, bullfrog. You got to tend to think that they're from the time that they're born to the time that they get out of the nest to the time that they're flying and feeding and starting to look after themselves is a very short window of time. So that time out of the nest is the time that they're fast tracking to development. And then how do you tell one bird from the other when they're in that fledgling state? Obviously, the parent are close by, and it kind of gives you an indication. But I like to look at a couple different things, we go back to that with a lot of our bird ID tips, is that the beak. Take a look at the beak, and generally speaking, the beak feathers or head feathers and the head itself hasn't developed fully, so the beak appears to be much bigger and unproportionate to the bird, and that often can tell you what type of bird it is, because when we study birds, we look at the bird itself, but we look at individual places on the bird, like the beak, like wing bars, like the feet and the color of the feet, where the legs are in proportion to the body. So whether it be in the center of gravity, forward or rear, you think about a woodpecker, their legs are way down the body so that they can be vertical on a tree. So all of those things can help you determine what type of bird it is, and then being very observant and watching all the parents. And I was hoping that that would be, so they were here earlier, and I was hoping they would be around again, but there are two pair of hairy woodpeckers here with fledglings that are around our place on this feeder quite frequently. I just moved it from up above. We're going to get the patio furniture out finally. It's middle of July almost. Anyway, we've had a lot of things happening around here this year for sure, and which has changed up a lot of the fledglings that we see out on the river. With the water levels being as high as they were all spring, our ducks and herons and geese, I should say. Herons, there's a rookery across the river, but the ducks and geese aren't as plentiful here this year, and we're not seeing any loons here at all this year either, because the river itself has been quite a bit higher than normal. And there was an article actually as well that the bugs have been so bad this year here in Ontario that it's been affecting loon nesting and some things. So there's been lots of stuff happening there. So there's lots of tips about how you can kind of go through and determine what type of fledgling bird that you have around. But check out on the beak, kind of watch it, check out on the feathers. The feathers are often not developed, and or they will molt, and particularly molt. What about the blue jays when they start to molt? My son always said they look like Ninja Turtles because they'll have full feathers all over, and as they develop and get more mature, they lose all of their head feathers, so that they just have the bare skin and some molting happening, and they're disproportionate to their body. It's a pretty cool thing. So get outside, enjoy, get those feeders filled up, watch for fledglings, and we'll talk at you soon. Have a good day.